And Sean, why don't you do the honors of the intro roll call?
All right, I'm gonna just run down my list. If you're here, please indicate so. Courtney Goslin,
Oh, here.
Kathleen, Ed,
Here.
Jesse,
Present.
Christopher,
Here.
Courtney Koslaw,
Here.
Emily,
Here.
Daniel,
Here.
Richard,
Here.
Suraj,
Here.
Rich,
Here.
Mayor Ballantyne, Andre,
Here.
Jill,
Here.
Hannah, and Ruben.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Welcome to our December meeting. Our first order of business is to vote on the meeting minutes from November 3rd. Are there any comments on the notes? And Courtney, I see your hand.
Yes. I noticed that the conversation about the timing that would need to be in place about whether we would the city could acquire the St. Anne's School or not, wasn't finished. It kind of like trailed off after a sentence without actually detailing anything, and there'd be information that would be helpful to be able to refer back to.
Okay, I will rewatch, if it's all right with the chair, I'll rewatch the recording of that, add some clarity around that, and then send this out as a draft minutes. We can publish them as drafts, if that's right, and then just vote on the November 3rd at the next meeting.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right, fantastic. I will do that.
Also,
Thank you.
I would note that St. Anne is ANN
Okay, thank you.
for those of us who care about that name. For those of us that don't. Any other comments about the November meeting minutes for Sean to incorporate? Okay, so we will see a draft copy and vote on them at the next meeting. Okay, next we're going to talk about CAG recommendation updates. And Rich, I'm going to look at you for this.
Great. Since the last SPC meeting, the CAG has met twice, once on November 10th, the other on November 25th, to deliberate and form their recommendation and draft the written version of that. And a surprise to no one, writing a report by committee is difficult. So the final draft was not completed. We gave direction to our consultant, CBI, to sort of merge two drafts that had been floated. That work is in progress right now. To help that final drafting, there were a couple of votes taken. The first vote was on the location, and I think everyone who's been paying attention to community input and the survey that went out, the CAG voted unanimously that they prefer Sycamore site over Trumfield. The committee then also voted on a few different potential sizes. The recommended size of the building, the majority of the CAG is leaning towards that larger enrollment number that will give the city and the school district the most flexibility in programming. On the opposite end, there was a minority that wanted to build as small a building as possible and ensure that there's a future investment in the Brown. And then there was a sort of third group that was a smaller minority that was somewhere in between there. So they're busy working on that draft. The consultant, of course, the last meeting was right before Thanksgiving. So the consultant hopes to have a revised draft circulated for the CAG to review by next week. The CAG is hoping to resolve all of their editorial additions or changes to that document asynchronously offline rather than meet again. but there was the possibility that if they were unable to do so in sort of a reasonable time frame, that there might have to be a snap meeting to get everybody in the room and sort of tick that off. But that's sort of where that is winding down. I don't know if Andre, who is also on the CAG, has any other sort of perspectives to lend on that.
No, I think you summed it up well. I think the only thing I would add is on the what I would say controversial issue of all of this, which is whether the recommendation of the future of the round, there was no consensus on even if they should make a recommendation, which that's what their recommendation would be.
I have a question. Are they anticipating a final date, or is this still a bit of, based on where the draft is and work is ongoing?
Um, Good question. I think everyone is working towards resolving this before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but we'll we'll have to see how the process
Yeah,
brings
I was
about.
going to say years in, but yeah, I think that's right. I think no one wants this to drag on any longer.
Yeah,
Yes, and years in business terms, functionally Christmas. Yes.
yeah. Those given where the holidays fall on the calendar this year, if it's not done by Christmas Eve, it's not going to be done by New Year's Eve either.
Yeah.
I should also point out that Mayor Ballantyne and Mayor-elect Wilson have discussed the matter and agree that they need to be in agreement and in concert on on how that recommendation is accepted and what the direction forward is. So there will be a commitment to coordinate between the outgoing and incoming mayor once the recommendation is in hand.
Thank you very much for the update, and I also want to thank the CAG for their ongoing passion and work towards this process. Any other questions regarding CAG before we move on? Yes, Rush.
So regarding that draft recommendation, is that a unanimous, just a matter of finalizing this, or there is a two school of thought floating around?
From
So
I think, and then I'll parse that out. I think I heard there's some unanimous consensus, and then there's some controversial. So maybe if you can be explicit about which one's which.
yeah, so and the thing, I think that the members of the CAG understand their opposing viewpoints, that the perspectives that others are taking, and want to represent the recommendation as documenting what that range of the recommendation is. As Andre says, they're particularly on the issue of the Brown, there really is no consensus. So it's more a highlighting of what the issues are around it and what the perspectives are within the community, because frankly they differ throughout the community. So it's sort of a consensus opinion on the direction in which the city should go, and sort of it becomes a recommendation for the mayor and for the school building committee as we continue the process and evolve the designs. But it's highlighting what the key issues are for the community, and they're trying to summarize that information for SBC and frankly for Perkins Eastman, so that the community engagement from this point forward is informed by what they've learned, and we can address those issues and work towards a broader community consensus from that point.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thanks again, Rich, for characterizing that and continuing the process along. Next, I'm going to pass it off to Perkins Eastman, specifically Lisa, who will be kicking off with some screen sharing and the presentation today.
Great. Thank you very much. I think I need permission. There we go. Perfect. Super. Everyone see my screen okay? Yes, thumbs
Yep.
up.
It is
Great.
up.
Now,
Very good. Thank you. All right. So here we are, December 1st on our second meeting. I'm just gonna go through our agenda for today. We're just gonna do a quick look at work plan update. We'll review some proposed community outreach plan that we've put together. Bob's gonna give a visioning and programming update. I'm gonna go through some highlights from our existing conditions site visits. And then Traverse is going to join us for the site inventory package that they're going to go through for the site assessment. So to get things started, we're a month into the PDP, which is the preliminary design plan. The design team has visited the site, and we're working on our reports for the PDP submissions. Our site survey team has been on site a few times. You'll probably be seeing them out there for the next couple of months or so, but I'll keep you guys informed on when they plan on being on site. And they're focused right now on the 115 Sycamore Street property. We've begun to gather educational data from the schools and are starting to develop a program, which Bob will talk about. And then our next steps will be to begin preliminary test fits, assess the traffic, and to develop the educational space template. I just want to do a check. Can you guys hear me? I don't know if you've got some background noise from something going on in my office. Just want to make sure.
Any.
We can
Okay,
hear
great.
you and there's no background noise.
Perfect. All right. Great. Thank you.
Tell us if there's a party going on.
There is a party
There
going
is.
on, but
Oh,
Dan,
geez, come
Bob, and
on.
I aren't invited.
Didn't you get
So
enough for Thanksgiving? Okay, keep going, keep going.
very good. So here's a look at some of the things that we're thinking about for our community outreach. We've been looking at we're talking to the city about doing some potential community events. So I know that the city's looking into that, and they're going to get back to us on what events we would be best for us to start to attend. But to get things started, we're proposing to have a few walk and talks at the Winter Hill site. The first one that we're thinking about would be for the neighbors. And we'd like to do this in a couple of weeks on December 13th, which is a Saturday, maybe in the morning, maybe around 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So we're just waiting for a little more feedback to confirm that. And then after the first of the year, we would do a similar walk with the Winter Hill and the Brown School parents. So what that walk would look like is, maybe we can start our walk by meeting at Brianna's, so everybody can grab a coffee or a warm drink, and then we'll take a walk around the block, making a few stops around the way to talk about things on, some of the more main routes of Medford Street, and then up Sycamore Street, looking at some of the things on site, things that the community and the neighbors like, things that work well, maybe talk about things that need improvements. But the whole idea is just to ask questions and or give the community the opportunity to ask questions and share their feedback with the design team. So our goal here is to engage the community early and often so that we can keep them involved and keep them informed in the process. Okay. And then I'm going to hand it over to Bob to talk about visioning.
Okay. You can go right to the next slide. So some of this will be redundant, but it'll be kind of from a different perspective. So as Lisa described, we're in the first phase of feasibility preliminary design program. Last time we were here, we kind of had an overview of what's involved up front with the visioning and programming during the PDP, including forming the educational leadership team. And tonight, I just wanted to share a little bit more detail on what that educational leadership team is focused on. So next slide. This is a look at those same phases. So the feasibility study, again, is divided into the preliminary design program and then the preferred schematic report. And then it moves on to schematic. what this is trying to graphically show is there is an awful lot that's going to happen right away in the preliminary design program that's taking place from October to March. It's, most everything you can think of, the existing conditions that you'll hear a report on later tonight, alternative sites or site assessments, the educational visioning and goals, the educational program, which is a specific MSBA document that is required by the district, the development of the space needs, the development of options, shortlisting those options. So it's a lot, and it's occurring right through the holidays. So that's kind of the message here. And it has affected our schedule. We have intentionally flipped a few things to make it work a little bit better through the holidays. The next half of the feasibility study, which is preferred schematic report, I'll say it gets easier. Tough decisions will be ahead, but what happens is you've now got a short list of options that will be refined. There'll be a little bit more detailed conversation about sustainability and systems and materials and massing, and budget and scope. But at the end of that, which takes us from April to August, the committee will, with the recommendations and the approval of the mayor and others, will be down to one option. And design is when that one option is developed in sufficient detail that it can be fully scoped, budgeted, and confidently take those numbers to vote. So that's kind of high level. The point here is there's a lot happening really in this upfront phase. And the next slide shows that some of these deliverables, the visioning goals, the educational program, and the development of the space summary really involve a granular level of input. So conversations that aren't necessarily conducive to a large school building committee meeting. So we've been meeting with the educational leadership team to understand a little bit more about the programming and to help set up what is going to happen, what should happen, or where we're starting from in the visioning. The educational program that I spoke about is a very specific MSBA document. It's required to be written by the district. So this is primarily one of the tasks that the ELT will have. That educational program will result in a meeting in which the MSBA will have reviewed it and they will question the district about what is written in the educational program. And then they'll question the design firm to see that the options that we've developed or the preferred option is meeting those goals and objectives. So that's a kind of a big weighty document. And all the while, the space summary will be that tabular listing of all the spaces that are required.
Do you mind
So-
if we pause for a moment to see,
No problem.
to check in to see if anyone has any questions? I'll just say first about the educational leadership team or the process in general, or the visioning, the program, or the space summary. Just checking speed if this is good, too much, too quickly. Okay, Courtney, yes.
Could you remind us who is on the educational leadership team?
That would be great.
I actually don't have the slide with me right now. I wish I did have it in the deck. But we've got 15 members. That's something that we can send separately the list of everybody that's included in the
Yeah, maybe you check in Superintendent Carmona or the principals. I think, your experience.
All three of them are on the EL.
Yep. That's why I was asking them if they have any reflections or want to speak to that. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say I missed a lot of the first meeting, so I would defer to somebody else to share.
Okay, it sounds like we'll need to circle back on those who are on the educational leadership team, but I think it's probably safe to say that there's representatives from leadership in education. And Rich, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just if it's helpful, I put in the chat the educational program that was developed for the high school project and submitted to the MSBA, in case anyone here wants to get sort of a flavor for what it looked like for the high school project. Of course, clearly this one's going to be different because it's a different age group, different set of programs, but it gives you a concept of what we're working towards.
And it is no small task, I will say. And so those on the team have a lot of writing to do, but it's a wonderful exercise to really define and justify the philosophy, the pedagogy, and also the needs for the specific project. Okay, Courtney Kozlow, we will follow up on that. Okay, any other questions? I also want to check in. Does anyone have any questions about the community outreach? Okay. Bob, thanks for letting me pause for a moment.
Yeah, no problem. And Courtney, just so you know, of educational leadership team members at the last building committee, so that should be available. I just didn't put it in the deck. I didn't want to have too much redundant material, but again, we will follow up with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so on the next slide, this shows a little bit of detail of what's involved. The overall process here for visioning and programming is something that Mike Priolo, our consultant, has been working on with the city and with public schools. It's taken shape based on the feedback that we've gotten. And one of the major things that we've done here is usually the visioning would start sooner, but that requires a pretty broad group of representatives from not only the schools and the city and maybe business leaders, students, parents, and a lot of educators. It felt really like something that we couldn't maneuver through the holidays too easily, so we put the program workshops up front. And what the program workshops basically are discussions about every subject matter within the school. For example, workshop 1 with the special education director, so that we can unpack a little bit what the programs are in detail and where the future might be going for some of those programs. So it really doesn't matter if these come first or the visioning comes first, but the programming will take shape ultimately when we develop the space summary based on the visioning goals. So I won't go through each one of these dates, but these have been charted to kind of thread through the holidays. One important thing and some feedback that we've gotten is that while there might not be a requirement for a school committee vote on the educational program or space summary, we do see that many communities, many districts do engage the school committee in the process and ultimately get approval before it goes into the MSBA submission, which will require some signatures. So that's something that, we're eager to hear how, if, and when we should engage the school committee as the process is taking place, or once things start taking shape. We can certainly happy to join school committee meetings and share what we've been putting together.
Andre, yes, you've got a comment.
Just wanted to make it clear that historically, like for the high school, the school committee did approve the education plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel for confidence saying that my colleagues are expecting to do that again for this project.
I like that expectation.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, let's keep
Very
going.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna, our next series of slides is an update on the building assessment. So I'm gonna touch base on a few highlights, but our reports that we'll submit in the PDP will be in much more detail. So seeing that the building was constructed in the 70s, there are various accessibility conflicts. The ramps at the north entry are too steep and the railings aren't compliant. Many of the doors have knobs and not lever handles. The reception desk at the main office isn't very inviting and it's definitely not accessible. And many of the doors lack the proper maneuvering clearances throughout the school. Stairway guardrails are low. They have wide openings, creating safety concerns. The handrails are also not compliant. And as you know, some of the exterior stairs are deteriorating.
And I'm not excusing any of this, but just for context, ADA went into effect in 1992, 1993.
Yeah.
So this is prior to the American with Disabilities Act, and
Yeah.
there was no regulation on these, and it stayed that way.
So, which brings in the whole piece of if you spend over $300,000, you need to fully upgrade the entire building. But there is
Yep.
an elevator, so so um, so all of the toilets will require accessibility upgrades. Many of the single occupancy toilet rooms are too small. None of the sinks in the classrooms or the workrooms are accessible, and there are actually some minor sightline issues at some of the toilet rooms on the second level. So the classrooms are outdated for 21st century learning. Finishes, visual displays, and the doors are all worn. The partitions that remain are thin with little or probably no STC rating, and the walls don't extend to the underside of the deck, so that allows for sound transmission from one space to the other. The building has fluorescent lights, which are outdated, and the device controls are not at an accessible height throughout the entire school. Areas of the school have been partially gutted and abated on I think it's the second, third, and the fourth floor, kind of that core area. But our hazmat team was there to do a more formal assessment. So they're working on the abatement analysis, which will also be part of the PDP package. Moving outside, the building envelope is inefficient. It only has 1 inch of urethane insulation, which is just sandwiched in between the concrete and the CMU walls, or in some cases the tectum panels below the windows. The windows were recently replaced with insulated glass, but the window wall ratio may not meet the current code requirements. The security cameras are insufficient, and the intercom system is outdated, and it lacks the video displays at all the entrances. There are no vestibules at any of the entries, which is not only a security issue, but also required by energy code to have that airlock into the building. And the many guardrails around the building aren't compliant and are somewhat unsafe. All right, moving into some of the analysis from our geotech engineer. They actually did not find any significant geotechnical concerns, but just from a visual look, but obviously test borings would be required to confirm the soil conditions. Our geotech engineer did identify minor cracking of retaining walls, entry slabs, and driveways, which is mostly caused by settlement. Cracks were noted inside the building, mostly on the first floor, the shower room, the basement hallways, mechanical rooms, which our structural engineer took a heavier look at. And but really, I think the good part was that there really was no sign of moisture intrusion from groundwater in the building. So so that's good, probably because it's up on a hill. So our structural engineer had indicated that the building requires a number of repairs and upgrades to meet the current code requirements. Level 3 alterations would be required for anchoring all of the masonry walls to the existing diaphragm. Additional seismic upgrades are required throughout the building. The concrete that's spalling, and there's the surface cracking that was spotted throughout many locations in the building will need to be addressed. And then the cracks in the masonry walls that were observed in multiple locations would also need to be addressed from a structural standpoint. And there was actually multiple locations of water intrusion, mostly up at the fourth floor and up at the gym roof. which is a little bit more envelope related, but a lot of that gets into the concrete and starts to deteriorate the reinforcing.
Again, I don't want to dismiss any of this, but seismic is also to comply with current code.
Correct. Yep. So, which we would be required to do. The moving into some of the MEP assessments from CMTA, the gas hot water boilers is original to the building and past its useful life. Electrical resistant heaters are past their useful life, and some of the sections, the electric heaters are detached from the baseboard of the wall. The air handling units and the ductwork doesn't provide adequate ventilation to meet indoor environmental quality requirements. The building has a floor-to-floor height of 12 foot 10, which is going to limit the amount of space we would have to increase the duct size throughout the building. There was some retrofit work to the unit ventilators, the UV filtration and the steam humidification in the classrooms, or at least some of the classrooms, but that would still require additional filtration equipment to bring the indoor air quality up to the levels that are needed. And the existing pneumatic and digital controls are in very poor condition and will need a full upgrade. So overall, the major infrastructure upgrades will be required for the building wide for electrified heating, air conditioning, and even just the code compliance for the ventilation. So lots of mechanical work. The existing electrical main switchboard and most of the distribution equipment is near the recommended lifespan. The manufacturers of Zinsco and Sylvania are no longer in service, so there's some major infrastructure upgrades that will be recommended for all of the equipment. The existing 75 kilowatt natural gas generator is in poor condition. It's not really large enough to serve any additional loads. The fire alarm control panel system is actually in fair condition, but it doesn't have the voice evacuation system, which is now also a code requirement. And as you know, the existing building doesn't have any sprinkler protection. We talked about the fluorescent light fixtures. Obviously, we'd want to replace all those for energy efficiency and just for better quality lighting. Just a quick look at the food service. The kitchen equipment is outdated and inefficient. The electrical and plumbing upgrades will be needed throughout the entire kitchen. There are a few actually pieces of equipment that John Sousa had found that are actually new. Those could be reused or they could be sent to one of the other schools for use. And then lastly, and most importantly for this day and age, is the educational technology. The existing building technology and network infrastructure is insufficient for the current educational requirements. The building construction and the current site conditions will prevent adequate wireless connectivity, especially in a concrete building like this. So it's going to be difficult to support the educational needs. The existing infrastructure is really not suitable for STEM, robotics, and project-based learning programs. There's limited conductivity and power for interactive displays and classroom AV systems. And there's inadequate cooling and pathways for grounding and preventing reliable operations of a modern IT system. So before I hand it over to Traverse, is there any questions about just any of the building assessment that we've gathered to date?
Thank you for asking the question. And I'd also prompt if the host could let Traverse Landscape off of the attendees into the panelists, that would be great. So does anyone have any questions about Lisa's very thorough existing conditions highlights?
I didn't put anyone to sleep, did I?
No, we're all still
No.
here. We're riveted. Don't hold back. Courtney, yes, go ahead.
Um, it, I mean, that none of this is surprising, but putting it all together, if there were ever questions about whether we could reuse some of this, and from a sustainability perspective, I always want to try to reuse at least the structure, especially with all this concrete. But it seems, at what point do we get to the conclusion that this is a tear down?
Well, we'll have to go through the process of assessing, an option with the existing building. Maybe it's a partial existing renovation and partial addition, and then a new building, and then we'll evaluate it by cost and various other things, and then we'll be sharing that with the committee. I think it's probably in a couple more months, if I remember correctly from the schedule.
Well, if we
Now,
can
Sean,
align it with the submissions, it's usually with the PSR.
yeah.
I'm usually all for exploring different things and also usually for adaptively reusing. But I'm also wondering, seeing all this, if we're just wasting our time, or does the MSBA just want
The
us to do?
Yeah, the MSBA will require us to look at least one scenario about reusing. So they typically require, they want to know what the cost would be if you were to reuse it.
Okay.
But that's exactly why Perkins Eastman is documenting all of this so that case can be to a point where we can compare apples to apples.
Yeah, and if it's helpful, the MSBA also requires us to do what they call a base repair. So that is a version that does not include any educational updates or goals or anything. It just purely is a code repair of the building. So it's really just for comparative purposes.
Okay. And then one last thing on this then. In the name of sustainability and carbon impacts, could it then be looked at in a way that we could figure out what could be saved could the sustainability be a focus of it? Because it seems to me that would be the only, without, if this exercise is going to happen, we might as well have that lens to move that forward.
Absolutely. Yep. Dan, did you have something to say? You were on mute, so I don't know if you're trying to talk.
I was just going to agree. We can definitely look at the carbon impacts and compare that to new. And as you say, Courtney, most of the carbon benefit is in the structure, concrete being high carbon. So
Yeah,
we can quantify it.
great. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Great.
Any reactions, surprises? I can't see everyone. Oh, yes, Jesse.
Just a quick question about the windows, because I did hear that they were sort of the amount of wall space to window. Like, let's say we had another school that needed windows and they happened to fit. Would they just not? Would we not be able to use them because of codes, or because I guess they're fairly new windows, right? Or is that something we could recycle, or that would be like really?
We'd have to. I'm not actually sure if we could look into that if the windows could be reused. A lot of those the window systems are customized to fit in those existing openings. So I'm not too familiar with the other schools in the city, but
I would just hasten to say that one of the areas where construction technology and products is accelerating almost exponentially is in window construction and detailing. So what seems fairly new relative to, say, to the structure is quickly becoming outdated. So they may not be able to be reused as is because they're not as efficient as something new. They might be able to be retrofitted and then reused. So it's not a definite huge savings, although there may be an opportunity we could look at.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean, that's kind of what I figured. And like I said, it would be like really threading a needle if it worked out that way. But just like we just, those, like it was mentioned that those windows were just purchased not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just looking to, defray some cost to the city anywhere we can.
I think
it
we're
was,
open to all creativity, and I've definitely seen it in other projects where things that you wouldn't think could be recycled can be recycled. And I think that let's get there when we get the right decision and choice
Agreed.
wise.
Yeah, definitely
Sean,
agree.
I saw your hand up. I didn't know if that was like a
That
wave
was,
hi or
yeah, that was pretty much the same thing I was going to say. And just a reminder that these are bid out using prevailing wage rates, and it becomes very expensive very quickly to try to salvage parts and pieces from building and make it work elsewhere. It's just from a cost perspective, it usually just doesn't work out.
but we care more about cost.
It's part of the balance, right? It's a balance of all the things.
Fair enough.
but definitely things that we can look into. I mean, there's even programs where somebody will come in and take stuff and reuse it for some other purpose, so
I
that it's
famous
not just going to a landfill.
I famously had big iron shutters from the Seaport District used for theater props, right? So
Right.
sometimes things can be made anew in very creative ways. Any other comments before we move on to, I guess, the last point, which is site assessment?
Yes. Great. So I have Steve and Chris here for Traverse, and I think Steve is going to take it away for us.
Yes. Hi, good evening. So as Lisa mentioned, we conducted a site visit a few weeks ago, and we took a look at the entire site, even got on the roof to get different vantage points. So we're going to start with one of the easier things to look at, trees. So this is a map of all of the trees that are currently on the property. Most of the trees are original to the 1970 something rebuild of the school. We actually have a copy of the landscape plan from then. So it's interesting to see some of those trees are still there. Most of the trees on site are not native trees. The honey locusts, which are the green ones, those are. The London plane trees, which show up in blue, are not. And the rest of the trees are more of a random assortment. So one of the things that we noticed was that the trees that have space to grow, mostly in the northern part of the site by the parks, where they have more soil, those are doing really well. They've got nice crowns to them, providing nice shade, and if we were able to renovate the school, those would certainly be candidates for reuse. And by reuse, I mean protecting them on site. It gets a little trickier on Sycamore Street itself, just because the building is so close to the road. The trees that you see in orange, those are columnar Norway maple trees. Those are invasive species now, and they are also not in really great health. So I think in whatever scenario we end up with, in all cases, we would recommend that those be replaced. The London plane trees that are on Medford Street, those seem to have some of the greatest presence on the streetscape. Those are really helping shade some of Medford Street itself, and they're providing canopy to that sidewalk. Those, in either case, we would like to try to save those if possible. But it will depend on, the site design and the building design as we move forward. So the last area I would really like to talk about is the garden, maze garden, which is on the, I guess, the northeastern side of the school, as this picture is right there. Yep. In that area, there are a few interesting trees. There's some smaller river birches. Those are the purple highlighted circles there. Those are nice native trees, very ornamental. That's something where if the city wanted to, we could try to find a way to maybe transplant those, probably not on site because of the longevity of the construction project, whether it's renovation or not. But if they wanted to be transplanted off-site, those would be probably the best candidates to do so. Um, so all in all, as far as trees are concerned, there's a decent amount of mature trees. Most of them are in good shape, and I think that the goal would be to salvage and protect as many as possible. But I think it's important to understand that it's very contingent on the amount of work that needs to happen on the site between utilities and demolition and all that. It may not be, we may not be able to save all of them. All right, you can go to the next one. So as we walked around the site, we took inventory of all the different playgrounds and site furniture and other hardscape amenities that you have out there. So this particular slide is a compilation of all three playgrounds. There's the Medford Street Playground, which has some relatively newer, smaller pieces for younger kids. Right, those are probably, I don't know if we have the date on those particular ones, but they appear to be within about 5 to 10 years old. The Evergreen Street or Evergreen Ave, the silver and blue, those are a mix of different companies. That project was finished in about 2018, and those are in pretty good condition. And part of the reason why we want to bring this up is because on previous projects, we have salvaged playground equipment and reused it on site as a cost savings. But it is a tricky process. We need to make sure that the manufacturer is on board with it and can help provide us with specifications on how to best salvage these and to make sure that they are safe and will be safe once they're put back together. But we just wanted to acknowledge the fact that all of the playgrounds here are generally in pretty good condition. Some of them are, within 10 years. So it's something that we can further review as we go through the process. As we move to the northeast corner of the site, there's the Winter Hill Field, which is a synthetic turf field. The field itself appears to be in pretty good condition. Unfortunately, if the site were to be completely redeveloped, that's not something that could be salvaged. However, the lighting, the sports lighting that's associated with it is something that we could look at trying to reuse if possible. Again, appears to be in very good condition. We don't obviously want to have an electrician take a look at them and test them out and see if they can be reused for the same purpose. So there's a couple other items out there that, we inventory, and these are not answers that we're looking for today, but something to think about with signage, basketball court, blacktop games, the decking feature that they have out there around some of the honey locust trees in the back. These are just things that we've noticed on site that are interesting features. Some of them, like the basketball court and the blacktop games, we would typically include within our design either way. But we'll be looking as we get closer and move through the design process, we'll be looking to get an idea of which items we'd like to try to salvage, which items we'd like to try to recreate on site.
Stephen, thanks very much. I want to recognize Suraj, who has his hand up.
So I have a question. Has there been a study for the requirement of ratio of recess area in comparison to the floor area that is going to be developed for the building?
I believe that there is. I think Chris may be able to speak to that a little bit more specifically, but I do believe that it's either population based or square footage based. But there is a target that we would aim for on site.
Yeah, I think it's a little tricky with the older age groups. There's definitely a formula for pre-K, but the older age groups, it's really a matter of working with the district and understanding how many students would be outside at one time, either before or after, during their recess time.
Thank you. Andre?
I'm just curious because, maintenance is a thing. Is for 7-year-old swing equipment is fair a normal condition? Like, what's life expectancy and what is this what we should expect, or are we somehow having trouble?
No, I think considering it depends on how heavily it's used. With an active school, that age group, elementary school kids, they're obviously engaged in using it all of the time on all the recess. Plus, the park is open off hour as well. So I think it's getting a substantial amount of use. And then, you do get typical wear and tear from the elements being up near mid-Mass, northern Mass, harsh winters and salt, stuff like that does affect its condition. But I don't think that they're worn out more than what we would expect them to be.
I think my take on this is a kinder report than what we heard about the inside of the building. And I didn't see anything in the poor condition. But that being said, maintenance is a very important thing. Do you have a follow-up, Andre? Okay. Courtney?
Stephen, is that the end of the presentation? I do have another question, but
we do have a couple more slides.
Okay, I can hold my question then.
Awesome. Okay, Stephen, you have the floor.
Okay. All right, next one is a little easier to get through. This is generally regarding site furniture. So there is, I don't want to say a surprising consistency with site furniture, but it's more consistent than what we typically see for a school of this age. Most of the black benches and tables and the blue recycling bins, those are all by the same company. They're all part of the same design line. It appears that they may be a city standard. I've seen some on some of the streets that match that same design. So all of those, for the most part, are in pretty good condition. Those would be certainly candidates for reuse on site, especially if they are a city standard and it's something that the city would like to continue to use. There's some wooden furniture. The top left corner, you'll see some picnic tables. Clearly, there are two new ones. Those look great. The other ones out there are a little rough. And the same goes for the wooden benches that are in the garden area. Some are still put together and functional, and then there are quite a few of them that have seen better days.
Before we move on, can you pause for a moment?
Sure.
Commissioner Lathan, I believe you see your hand up. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that most likely these barrels, those will be replaced with big barrels. We're kind of moving away from these open barrels. So we'll be having these are kind of moving away from those because of our loading issues in the city.
Okay.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Sure. So yeah, site furniture, we will continue to review. And again, if there are standards, that's what we would aim to reuse. Some of the other items are a little bit more custom. For instance, the gateway to the Medford Street playground. Obviously, everything that's associated with Mays Garden. And then there's some other pieces of signage that we would look at. Is there a desire to have some of the large panel board signs that are hand painted on Sycamore Street? You can see an example in the lower right-hand corner. And then there are the community garden components. There's the water harvesting system, and then the beds themselves. So we do look at, is that something that we want to recreate in the new design or try to move on from? Everything that would be salvaged, we would incorporate into a salvage plan to make sure it was handled correctly and protected from the elements and from any construction work. So we understand, excuse me, especially Mays Garden, there's obviously a lot of effort and connection into that spot. So we want to make sure that if there's a desire to have that recreated or reconfigured in some way, we can work to have that done.
Yeah, I think we should, if you don't mind, let's pause here for a
Sure.
moment because I think Maze Garden is especially important. And I want Courtney to speak to that directly.
Sure.
Thank you. And that is where I was waiting for. There was a piece of May's garden. So May was my daughter. This garden is in memory to May, who died in 2020 from complications from a rare lung disease. She was a member of the Wildcats. She was 4.5 at the time. She was in pre-K, but had also been going to speech and physical therapy at the school for several years. So I know I personally obviously would love to see this Maze Garden incorporated in the new school. I know that quite a few of the teachers and staff have asked me, knowing that I'm on this committee, and you know what will happen with the garden. And we do continue to have kind of a May Day, May Garden Party in the month of May every year, and the PTA is continuing that on. We're looking to potentially relocate these to Edgerly in the meantime to protect them. But I did want to make a strong request that this be an active part of the planning on the landscape design.
Sure, absolutely. I think we understand the importance of it. And it's a really valuable space on the site. It's a nice quiet space right now. It's kind of nestled in between the buildings. You don't get a lot of street noise. So there's a lot of breakout kind of space, quiet reflection space that you don't normally get in a densely populated area as such. So,
Steve, I just want to add in here really quick with the site furnishings and equipment. Anything that's in good condition that the city feels there are other spots for in other parks or along any greenways. Sometimes it's easier to remove and place them in new areas within the city. That eliminates the need to stockpile them and then, you know, have them sit for somewhere in some space for a couple of years and then get put into the brand new school and facility. Sometimes that's a better reuse option for you.
I just want to go back for a moment, which is to say, I think it's incredibly important to honor May's Garden when we speak about it, but also when we go forward in the design. So I just want to put that out there. Andre.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. This is the kind of thing that like not bringing over feels like severing the connection to what's to the history, and like I'm not okay with that. Like schools are communities, and this is a key way in which the new building is still the same community.
And just as a little quick little story on the mosaics themselves, a beautiful stuff project designed these mosaics with the school community. And every single class worked on it and had some time to talk about loss, whether they knew May or just their own personal loss. It was kind of the first project when we were back in the building after the pandemic that really brought us together. And then there was a time for people to come on May's birthday in February to outside of the school. The student also worked on it. So, and then we had a really big launch, and it was really a wonderful demonstration, as you know, Andre said, of what one way in which this community is one of the many ways in which it's special. So I appreciate all that. Thank you.
welcome. Okay. Two more quick items on this sheet. There are two programmatical items. There are the Biba signs, which have QR codes and is a game you can play on your cell phone that has been added to the playgrounds. That's something that is a little bit separate from the playground itself. I believe it's created by a different company. So we'd like to get some feedback on that at some point. And then the city bikes, it's on the school property. Getting an understanding of how that relationship works and whether that is something that would want to be carried through into the next iteration of the school. That way we can accommodate space and utilities as needed.
Thank you. Courtney Gosselin.
Yes, thanks. Just a couple of comments on that. That cell phone game, that has been put in since we've left that site. So we have not had that. So we know nothing about it. So anything that encourages kids to be on their cell phones outside and not play, I'm not sure that I'm for it. And then in terms of the bikes, the one thing I do want to say is that we do have some students use the blue bikes, not as much. I think the city put those in after we left, but bike racks are an absolute must. We have some bike rack space over at the Edgerly, and it's not sufficient for the amount of students who use their bikes. And we did not have bike rack space when we were there before at the Sycamore site, and we definitely need that. So I just want to put a plug in for that.
Yeah, aren't blue bikes 18 plus anyway?
I don't know. The kids like to sit on them a lot and just play on them. Not sure they actually use them.
Andre?
The accounts are you can have it's 13, but yeah, you can put the blue bikes over at 50 Evergreen. So the people who do use them can park a block away. Like schools are
I
schools first and foremost. Like
I love that there's a parking thing there because I used to ride it to, Somerville Youth Soccer. It's a wonderful place, but
the
I'm with you.
neighborhood, blue bike presence in Winter Hill is great, but there's a city building literally across the street. Just put it there.
Got it. Rich, can we task you of figuring out how Biba Game Panel showed up at a school?
I actually think they were there. I remember seeing them from the beginning, and we tried them out when the playground first came out, and
What a
it didn't make
mystery.
sense, and we just ignored it.
Yeah, maybe
No,
they were. I don't remember them ever using them.
yeah. Plus, it was for the pre-K kids, so they wouldn't really be using it with
Okay.
a cell phone.
I'll let that information and that conversation go for internal, but if you don't get an answer, we can bring it up at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. And I think I have one more slide to get through, and then
There's one more question. I don't know if we want to.
Actually, Jill's had her hand up for a while,
Oh, okay.
so
All right.
I'm just not, and I'm very, very happy about it, but I just knew that it was a legacy one.
okay. The last category of hardscape items that we looked at had to do with paving and surfaces. So going through the site, we noticed that there's, at least on the corner of Sycamore and Medford, there's a decent amount of granite. So there's some curbing that is on the back of the sidewalk, and then there's two large rectangular areas with cobblestones. Those are where we saw the orange Norway maples on the tree plant. So those are kind of set in a non-walkable area. All of that's to say is that granite is always a nice thing to have on site. And granted, if you look at the upper left-hand corner, the second one in there, the traffic light, it doesn't look super awesome because of the way it's mortared together. But there are uses that we could come up with to reuse these on site if you all were inclined to do so. So just something, again, we don't need an answer right away, but just something that we notice on site that's worth reuse. Cobbles especially, those are in really good condition. And they can be used in a lot of different areas on site. Other than that, the decking, the composite amphitheater, that probably isn't something that we would be able to relocate, but that's a recreation question. Is that something that we would like to see moving forward? And then lastly, there's a couple of boulders on site. I think one of the previous slides had a granite block. Those are kind of small elements that we can add into either play areas for more of a natural play setting or into landscaped areas to kind of like you've seen in the garden at the school now. So that's all of the items that we really wanted to draw attention to at this point. Let me know if you have any other questions.
Yeah, I think what might be helpful Because, I know that you said you don't need answers right away, but it's very likely that we won't be answering these questions until we actually have a selected design, right? That we're going forward and we can start to apply some of these very specific items. So this might be a great presentation to recreate in a couple of months when we've got the design, so we can refresh our memory of what the inventory is and ways in which we can incorporate it. Daniel.
Stephen, would you mind going back to the first slide about the trees? I just want to make a comment on that if I heard you correctly.
Sure.
So the honey locust trees, you made the comment they're on the northern side, they're near the parks, they have more soil, they're in great shape. If I remember correctly from, I'll stress the preliminary drawings we saw, there's a potential there could be a building there based on what our needs are and where we start building. So I just want, as Perkins Eastman, I'm sure, can attest from their work on the Vassar Lane Montessori, the neighbors are concerned when you start talking about taking down trees. So I just want to make sure we're setting expectations. It's really early in the process to say we aren't keeping trees. So I just want to get that out there now. We don't know yet, and there's more to come. But I want to make sure that we don't know if we're going to have a building there, but we might, in which case those trees might not be there. So I just want to get that out there.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, that's the better solar orientation on that side, but new trees can be replanted.
Any other questions regarding overall site analysis? Okay, Traverse Perkins Eastman, thank you very much for the presentation.
Just wanted to
Oh, yeah,
say,
sorry, Jill.
I just want to support, when we talk about storage issues in the city for stuff that we're going to keep, we have none. So, we've got to really keep that in mind. Some things, if we want to really look at keeping, we have to really be intentional and thoughtful about where that's going to go. Can't be just placed somewhere temporarily. So just wanted to put that out there from a DPW perspective.
Incredibly important.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other closing comments, thoughts? The process keeps going. Okay.
Next meeting date? Do we have a date set?
I was going to get there.
Okay.
Our next order of business is to set the next meeting, and we'll probably do it on a monthly cycle. Typically, we've been doing the first Monday of the month. That would set us on January 5th. I got a thumbs up from Jill. We're all good? Okay. We're still good with virtual? Okay. Let's say January 5th, 4:30 virtual. And that was very easy. Thank you all.
Perfect.
Now we're going to move into the public comment period. This is where members of the public can give public comment if you'd like. I see 3 in attendance. Let's see. Usually, I don't know if you can raise your hand or Q&A. I forget in the webinar environment. But I'll pause for a moment if there's any public comment. Okay, I see none. Sounds good. So can I have a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
Andre, second? Anyone?
Second. I'll second.
Commissioner Latham? Okay.
I think it was Daniel.
Oh, sorry, Daniel.
I have Daniel and Jill for the motion and second.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Sean, roll call.
All right. Ruben.
I'm sorry, what was the call on?
Would you like to close
motion
the
to
meeting?
adjourn. You want to get out of here?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Courtney Goslin.
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
Jesse.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Courtney Koslow.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Suraj,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Andre,
Yes.
and Jill.
Yes.
All right, that's 13.
Great, thank you all, and I really appreciate the hard work that went into this. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.